When you talk about the most iconic American muscle cars, the 1968 Dodge Charger is a name that always comes to mind. And this particular Charger has been sitting in a barn untouched for nearly 30 years. Joey was commissioned for a special project, leading him to the home of an elderly gentleman. There, in a dusty barn, sat a 1968 Dodge Charger. The owner, now 96 years old, is a World War II veteran. He's lived a life of great ups and downs and now lives a quiet, solitary life. His one constant companion through it all was this classic muscle car. But over 2 decades ago, his health declined to the point where he could no longer drive his beloved machine. Now, feeling his time is short, he couldn't bear the thought of leaving his old friend to rot away. So he asked his neighbor to find Joey, hoping to restore the car to its former glory. The team quickly winched the car out of the barn and secured it onto the trailer. After they left, the old man made sure to sweep out the dusty space his car had occupied for so long. Before long, the Charger arrived at Joey's workshop. The entire car was blanketed in a thick layer of dust, but it was clear the owner had once cherished it. The body was in remarkably good shape, with no significant scratches or dents. Its aggressive, hard-edged lines screamed pure, unadulterated power. Under the hood sat a massive 7.2-liter American V8, factory-rated to produce around 375 horsepower. Joey started with a high-pressure rinse to blast away the initial layers of grime. As the dust washed away, the car's original color began to emerge. The paint underneath was in surprisingly incredible condition. For a car that had been sitting this long, its state of preservation was easily in the top 5 of all the cars Joey has ever worked on. Next up, he mixed up a batch of cleaning foam. The pressure washer had removed the loose dirt, but a lot of stubborn grime was still clinging to the surface. He covered the entire car in a thick layer of snow foam, let it dwell for a while, and then began a detailed hand wash with a microfiber mitt. For the tight corners and crevices, he used a soft bristled detailing brush. The foam softened and dissolved the embedded dirt, which was then rinsed away with the pressure washer. The engine bay received the same comprehensive cleaning to prepare it for the work ahead. This area was covered in more oil and grease, so a different set of degreasers and cleaners was used. Before tackling the undercarriage, Joey removed the old, dry-rotted tires, which were completely unusable. The chassis was predictably the dirtiest part of the car. He started with a powerful blast from the pressure washer, then coated the entire undercarriage with a heavy-duty foam. After letting it sit for 10 minutes, he scrubbed everything down with a stiff-bristled brush before giving it a final thorough rinse. You could see years of caked-on mud and grime washing away onto the floor, which took Joey a good while to clean up afterward. Even though the wheels and tires were going to be replaced, he gave the old set a proper cleaning, just in case the owner wanted to keep them as mementos. Next up, the interior. Because the barn was well sealed and very dry, the car's interior only had a small amount of mildew and thankfully no signs of rot or unwanted critters. The leather seats were also exceptionally well preserved. Despite this, a thick layer of dust coated every surface, and a full cleaning was still necessary.
Joey was meticulous, not missing a single nook or cranny, paying special attention to the complex structures of the dashboard with a variety of small brushes. He then used a powerful vacuum to clean the carpets. In the trunk, he found the car's first and only mouse nest. The trunk contained a few miscellaneous items, sitting on top of the very cool original factory trunk mat. Instead of throwing it out, Joey cleaned the mat thoroughly, let it dry, and placed it back in, along with one of the cleaned original spare tires. The final steps for the interior involved steam cleaning and vacuuming the carpets, followed by spraying a deodorizing and sanitizing solution throughout the cabin, which was left to sit before being wiped down. Moving back to the exterior, Joey began the paint correction process. The paint showed visible signs of oxidation and fine swirl marks. With a polisher, the dull, hazy section he worked on was quickly restored to a brilliant shine, creating a stark contrast with the untouched side. Polishing an entire car is a time-consuming and physically demanding job. It took Joey the better part of a day and a half-dozen foam pads to complete the entire surface. With the paint work done, he called in his good friend Tom, a mechanic, to assess the engine. The goal was to figure out what it would take to bring the V8 back to life. During his inspection, Tom discovered that the owner had even done a few performance modifications to the engine back in the day. He tried to start it, but after a few attempts, it was clear it wasn't going to fire up. The carburetors weren't getting fuel, and the spark plugs and ignition system were likely shot from sitting for so long. The plan was to rebuild the carburetors and replace other essential components. While Tom left to prepare for the engine work, Joey finished polishing the vinyl roof. Then he moved on to polishing the chrome front and rear bumpers and all the trim pieces. The final step for the paint was applying a protective layer of wax. Inside, he applied a conditioner to the leather and vinyl surfaces to protect them and restore their suppleness. He also detailed the kick plates, door jambs, and cleaned the windows until they were spotless. It was at this point, as the car was coming back to life, that he noticed a unique feature: seat belt holders on both the front and rear roof pillars. In 1968, the US government mandated that all new cars must be equipped with seat belts. However, it wasn't until the late 1980s that laws required people to actually wear them. So some cars from that era, like this one, included these clever clips to keep the belts tucked away for a neat and tidy interior. Back to the main task. The next day, Tom and his father, Old Tom, arrived. They removed the 3 carburetors from the engine and took them back to their shop for an ultrasonic cleaning. After inspecting them for parts that needed replacing, they rebuilt them and reinstalled them on the engine. They also installed a new fuel pump and fuel filter. Old Tom poured a bit of fuel directly into the carburetors to prime them. Since the condition of the fuel tank and lines was still unknown, they hooked the fuel pump up to an external gas can filled with fresh fuel for the initial startup attempt. But the first try was a no-go. The engine wouldn't turn over. So the team started checking the distributor and spark. The spark tester showed that the ignition system was working properly. Next, Old Tom removed the old fuel lines to prevent any future leaks. To be safe, they also replaced all the spark plugs and ignition wires. A second startup attempt also ended in failure. There was only one thing left to do: pull the valve covers and inspect the valve train. They needed to check for broken rocker arms or bent push rods. The visual inspection didn't reveal any obvious problems, but a compression test showed that the cylinder pressure was low.
So they poured a little ATF into each cylinder, an old mechanic's trick to help free up stuck piston rings. After removing the rocker arms, they finally found the culprit: a few stuck valves. With some careful work, the team managed to free them up. The issue was resolved. And now for the moment of truth. Let's see if this big block heart can finally beat again. Success! The engine was finally running. Just in time, the new custom wheels and tires arrived. The team got right to work swapping them out. But before mounting the new wheels, they had to inspect the entire brake system. The old brake lines and master cylinder were badly rusted and aged. They were replaced with brand new parts. After bleeding all the air out of the system, the new wheels and tires were finally mounted on the car. After that, Joey topped off the engine oil, transmission fluid, and other essential fluids. Then, he took the car out for a short test drive. At this point, the restoration of the 1968 Dodge Charger was complete. The neighbor brought the old gentleman over right away. It was clear he was incredibly excited to be reunited with his car. As the Charger slowly rolled out into the sunlight, the owner looked at it with a mix of familiarity and disbelief. He was amazed by its transformation. His health no longer permits him to drive, but he sat in the driver's seat one more time. He turned the key and listened to the deep, rumbling voice of his old friend. He carefully looked over every detail of the car, which looked just as it did in its prime. It brought a wave of memories and emotions rushing back. To cap it all off, Joey took the wheel and gave the old soldier one last ride in his beloved Charger, fulfilling a final wish. And that's where we'll end today's video. If you enjoyed this kind of restoration story, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.